Siomra Beag.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Tiny Room. Welcome back to On Siomra Beag. It is, on the 1st of December, an incredibly cold day in the Tiny Room, and my small rat-night nipples have become prominent. I am joined today by the man whose eyes are being distracted by my tiny rat-like nipples. Is Ben. I can't say rat-like.
No.
Rat-like nipple.
They're like glimmering diamonds in the rough, Michael.
Very good,
There's
yes.
so much mystery.
Look at them.
So much mystery.
So small but so prominent.
Goodness.
Benjamin, it is exceptionally cold in here today.
It is.
Our facilities manager has turned off the heating for us.
That's what you get for not paying your bills.
No, we did pay the bills. The rest of the studio space, Ben,
The huge
aka my
epic
house,
studio space that we have
is quite warm, but not in here. Thanks, facilities manager.
Gee, what a swell job you did.
Ben, you know what I think it's about bloody time for?
What?
This is the bloody theme music.
Theme music for the podcast. We don't actually have any theme music.
Still good. Benjamin,
Yes.
this week I find myself bereft of things to talk about. Luckily, you have brought us a big long list of stuff.
A whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, go on.
I can't remember the first thing on it. I think it's Lucifer, Michael, which I've been reading. I've been reading a comic book this week, Michael.
How unlike you.
How unlike me. And I've been reading the new run from the Sandman Dreaming universe, the Lucifer run by Dan Waters.
Dan
It's just
Waters.
a great name. And Sebastian Fiumara. I don't know how to
I'm going
pronounce
to
it.
jump in on you there, Ben, and ask, is his name Waters and you're comically mispronouncing
No,
it?
Watters.
Waters.
I think it would be Waters.
Okay, cool.
And Sebastian and Max Fiumara, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Two Italian comic book artists who work together.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
They must not be from the north and the south of Italy, because
Yes.
then they wouldn't work together. They just keep shouting at each other.
No, then you would just have, oh my God,
Hey, what you doing?
it's a lot of stereotyping there,
I
Michael.
know, look, Ben.
That will become relevant later on in this episode.
It's
Look at you sowing the seeds.
I'm sowing the seeds, Ben. I'm sowing my seeds.
Sowing. Oh God.
Go on.
Anyway, I was reading the new Lucifer, Michael, and I have to say,
Yes.
pleasantly surprised.
Ladies and gentlemen, just another little bit of information about the day-to-day running of the Tiny Room. Today we don't have enough. Our facilities manager hasn't prepared enough water glasses for us, so Ben is drinking his podcasting water from a champagne flute.
Next
he's
to the
going to,
Juggernaut's butt cheeks.
he's going to take a picture, so it'll be on the Instagram.
I'm going to
So
put his arse in prominent view. 'Cause I
this
feel-
is good. So you'll probably be looking at this on Instagram, going, "What's this about?" But now you'll listen to the podcast and go, "That's what it was about."
Yeah.
Not that funny, really.
Yeah, well, it is now. I've decided. Look, Sunday posts are hard. We have to figure out content for the Sunday schedule.
Bloody content, man. We live and die by content.
Bloody content.
Speaking about Lucifer.
Go on.
No, you're talking about Lucifer.
Oh yeah, sorry. So I think it's probably not a comic for anyone who's been enjoying the now Netflix series of Lucifer. With the bloody big sexy Englishman Tom Ellis playing Lucifer, because it's not very like that. It is very much like the original Lucifer given to us by the Sandman creator Neil Gaiman. The David Bowie aesthetic is back. You'll remember many moons ago, Michael, on this podcast we broke down kind of why Sandman was such a seminal piece of work in the comic books industry, and we looked at a little bit of the inspiration there from Dave McKean and Mr. Neil Gaiman, and they based him on David Bowie, and that aesthetic
Bowie.
kind of disappeared because Lucifer got his own series from Vertigo Comics in 2000, and it was with Mike Carey. Mike Carey was the man in charge, and a host, I would say a holy host, but an unholy host of artistes. And they kind of abandoned that David Bowie aesthetic, and then we got a really terrible reboot in 2015, and it was trying to kind of coincide with the Lucifer TV show. And it was an awful reboot of the character, and now it's back to its dark, grim, grimy, literary referencing, bizarre. Magic is what you make it. It's all about intent, timey-wimey, uppy-downy, netherworldy, nexusy kind of stuff. It's great, and we'll probably do a whole episode on it in the future, Michael.
Oh, will we?
If you allow me.
Oh, well, I'll bloody put it in my notebook. Of
Put it in the notebook
Ben's proposals.
of things. But from there, Michael.
Go on.
From there, I need to take a break from all my reading, Michael. And
Yeah.
I went to where everybody goes when they want to take a break from life, Michael, Netflix.
You want to chill and to Netflix and chill.
Well, I I don't know. Can you Netflix and chill by yourself?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, you can. Oh, yes, you can. Well, I didn't touch my shelf to this show, Michael, because that'd be very strange.
You didn't touch your shelf. Your shelf where you have loads of action figures.
Yes, exactly.
Very clever.
Exactly. I don't actually have... an interesting thing about Mick, ladies and gentlemen, he thinks everybody has a tiny room filled with action figures.
Don't they?
And frequently goes to people's houses and is bitterly disappointed.
Very disappointed in both the service and the lack of a room full of action figures.
However, their services manager usually has the heating on.
Yeah, it's on, and then they're fine, and they're not cold, and they don't have little rat snips popping through their t-shirt.
Anyway,
Go
I
on.
watched The Toys That Made Us, Michael.
Right.
Which is
Okay. Go on.
a super nerd documentary on Netflix where they look at all those big 80s toys you're always banging on about.
Transformers.
Transformers.
Stars Wars.
Stars Wars. He-Mans and the Masters of the Universes.
Oh.
And I watched the He-Man episode, just the He-Man episode, quickly last night, Michael, in a kind of drunken fugue state at 1 a.m. Very good, Michael. Very enjoyable. Breaking down, my God, toy creators in the 80s, kind of just creeps. Just sleazy kind of.
Go on.
It was almost like a Martin Scorsese movie.
Go on.
But these guys didn't, run the streets. They ran toys. It was so weird. They were like, they would talk about, and we really got those toy companies on board with that big lie. You're just like, what?
Yeah, it's great.
What? And it's like, oh, this wasn't for kids. This was money. And you're just like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing.
It's a real
Michael.
sleazy industry. I remember when we did a whole episode once about Toy Biz.
Yeah, we did.
Not the toy business, but the company Toy Biz.
You didn't get into the murky Martin Scorsese-esque
Didn't
storylines.
we talk about Ike Perlmutter and his slightly dodgy dealings?
Oh, yeah, you did. We did talk about Ike, but we didn't talk about He-Man. He-Man, literally, you have 5 main He-Man creators. Each one of them has leapt from the silver screen into real life. It is bizarre. They are larger than life characters. There's one guy, Ron
Perlman.
It's not Ron Perlman. My brain went there as well.
Swanson.
It was Sweet. It's
Burgundy.
Ron Sweet. And he was the guy who came up with the initial kind of mold, the proto mold for He-Man. He was obsessed with bodybuilders, Michael, and he had kind of a weird fetishistic relationship with him.
Yeah, good.
And one of the things that I found out that fascinated me is he hated Prince Adam because Prince Adam made him all soft, and he was like, a sissy like that doesn't deserve that kind of physique. And he says this in the show, and you're like,
oh,
it was different times.
Different times
It
back
was
then.
different times back then.
I mean, He-Man is just Conan.
Yeah.
It was basically riding the coattails of the success of Conan.
But they did a whole focus group where they let 5-year-olds play with different toys and different aesthetics. And Frank Frazetta's Frazetic, which is an aesthetic with a Frazetta twist.
Yeah, I got it.
Is the one that got primary kind of that'll sell.
Yeah, nude men.
That'll sell. Nude men will sell. I mean, that's a complicated question for later, but nude men, they'll sell.
They'll sell.
They'll
Those
sell.
nude men.
I mean, Chippendales has known that for years, Michael.
The furniture makers.
Yes, the ones who have the furniture exclusively made by large tan svelte men in the nip.
Do the Nippendales still exist even?
No, Nippendales is long gone. That's
Oh,
a
they're
very
gone? Yeah,
it's a very
okay.
obscure reference. Magic Mike. We can use a Magic Mike.
Magic Michael, yeah.
Magic Michael.
Yeah.
Not this Magic Michael.
Oh, thanks, Ben. I
You
appreciate
are
it.
Magic Michael.
Yeah.
But another Magic Michael altogether. So that was me, Michael. I really enjoyed it. I think we'll have to probably look at that series. I'm going to watch the whole series, Michael.
It's a very good series.
And then I'm going to
Transformers one
adapt
is
it
very
into
interesting too.
I'm going to adapt it into a pitch for Martin Scorsese, and we're going to make a Netflix movie together.
You, Martin Scorsese, and He-Man.
And He-Man.
Or the story of making He-Man.
Yeah.
No, you said yes to both things. Which one is it?
It's yes to all of them.
Okay.
It's yes to all. I mean, me and Martin could make a He-Man movie, and then we could make something that's probably more of Martin Street, which is a movie about the making of He-Man, which is probably more his thing. One of my favourite things is that several of the creators turn around when they get to the Dolph Lundgren kind of ill-fated movie adaptation.
Yes.
And they keep saying that Dolph Lundgren is too small. And
He's
I'm
too
just
small
there
to be
going,
He-Man,
no,
yeah.
that's not
He's
true.
pretty small.
He's not.
He's pretty small.
Dolph Lundgren is huge.
He's very tall, but he's a bit svelte to be
Yeah,
He-Man.
that's what they said. He's too svelte.
Yeah, he's too svelte.
I think they wanted Schwarzenegger.
Yeah,
I
you
think
want
they were all
someone-
dreaming of Schwarzenegger.
You need someone with the bulk to be He-Man.
Yeah. And Schwarzenegger does have that bulk.
Good friend of the
He's
Shane
got the
podcast had a He-Man haircut for a long time.
No.
Yeah, I think he was really inspired by He-Man.
Oh, excellent.
In the 90s, Shane looked like if He-Man wanted to be in the Matrix.
Shane wouldn't actually be a bad He-Man. I feel like Shane's got the bulk.
It's not pronounced He-Man.
He-Man, the Irish adaptation.
He-Man. Ben, is there anything else that we would like to talk about today?
Well, Michael, unfortunately,
Go on.
we have a returning segment
Oh no.
with brand new music.
Okay, hold on.
Would you like me to do a usual theme tune
No,
launch?
I'll actually just play it on my phone because I think it's one of your
boy. Anyway, the theme that's coming back.
Hold on. No, don't tell people.
Do you have time?
We do.
Do we have time?
No, you don't need. You just spin your wheels a tiny bit.
We have time. I don't really have time to spend. Well, as we know, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes I open my mouth before I should. Sometimes I haven't quite checked your computer is still going. I thought it died. Sometimes I haven't quite checked to see whether the facts that I'm spouting are facts. And that leads us to our favourite segment. It is like every great 80s theme tune. It's Frasier meets Cheers meets Full House. It's incredible. That was sent in to us by who, Michael?
That was by a friend of the podcast, Brian.
Attaboy, Brian. That's fucking great. I've never had a song specifically for my hubris. And I will now use that for everything. So that was sent in by Brian, and it will be the new thing on Ben's Retractions. We have 2 retractions this week, Michael.
Oh, wow, 2 retractions.
Last week, you'll recall that I said the new Charlie's Angels was directed by none other than the very prominent female director, Elizabeth Shue.
She's a karate kid. You're thinking of the Karate Kid.
I was misled by Michael and Shane's antics on the previous podcast.
She would be a shoe-in for the role if she auditioned for it.
There it is. It was Elizabeth Banks, Michael. Elizabeth Banks. Noted lady. Elizabeth Banks.
Lizzie B, she goes
Lizzie
by.
B, who was giving out saying that the world wasn't ready for an all-female cast, even though we've had many attempts at this in the past. No, we're not at all. Moving on from there, we have a second retraction, Michael.
Yes.
You asked me, was the Castlevania anime series written by We Granty M?
Yes.
Wasn't it all?
It's Warren
written
Ellis.
by Warren Ellis.
It's Warren Ellis.
Oh, the fools, both of us there. But it's my segment, so you can fuck off. I'll take all the blame. I'll take all the blame.
Yeah, you see then when I'm not sure I ask. That's one of my keys.
That's because you're a man of patience and humility. I, on the other hand, am an arrogant stain on the face of humanity.
Yeah, I think that's fair, yeah.
There you go.
Tiny nipples.
Tiny nips, just micro nips, micro nips.
Anyway,
what else are we talking about, Michael?
Ben, you have written here something about Astartes, but you know this is what happens when you do the running order. I don't know what you want to talk about. I'm excited to hear.
Fair enough. So this is something that Mick turned me onto.
Oh, I turn you on quite often.
It's just when the nips come out. I wish the services manor hadn't done it. It's very hard to focus.
It's quite warm now.
It's quite warm. It's heating up nicely.
The heating
up nicely. Astartes is just a phenomenal YouTube channel where one guy has taken it upon himself to make what is arguably the best Warhammer 40k video series ever.
Video series might be a strong word. It is essentially one short.
A fan film?
It's a short fan film. It's only about 7 minutes, I think, if even. But yeah, it's very good.
Well, unfortunately for the gentleman making this phenomenal series, he was hacked, Michael, and his channel was stolen.
Oh, very bad.
And the YouTube community was outraged. The nerd community in general was outraged. But basically, the guy who hacked his channel attempted to sell the rights to this guy's creative property to different things and then charged people to watch them.
Oh, no.
However, one very nice member of the Warhammer 40k online community from a Reddit who seemingly has an endless supply of money, bought the channel back.
Very good.
So obviously he has a facetious amount of money. But this is again with a fresh wave of attacks on what is technically creator-made properties.
Oh, is it though?
It happened. Well,
is it though?
Well,
is it?
Why? What's your suspicion here, Michael?
Well, no, I'm not saying it's. I'm not arguing that the person who stole the stuff, but. Is it creator owned? Because I mean, it's
an intellectual property.
It's the Warhammer intellectual property, isn't it?
Yes, but I suppose he was making it without charging people.
That doesn't always cover you.
No, it probably doesn't.
It depends how litigious the IP holders are,
and they are quite litigious.
Games Workshop in the past have been very litigious. They seem to be relaxing a little bit now.
Especially when you see something of that quality, where you're just like, "Oh, this is."
Yeah, and they seem to be kind of embracing fan work. But Ben, as you well know in IP law, if you don't defend your product, if you don't defend your IP, then when someone big does come along and claim it and you don't have a history of defending it, that can be taken as a sign that you have no interest in defending it.
Really?
That has always been Games Workshop's stance on why they pursue small creators so doggedly. Not because they have anything against that small creator or see them as any sort of threat, but that
if they don't want somebody else sliding into their IPs, well, that's no good. But it comes on the back of a fresh wave of kind of attempts on monetizing what is effectively not-for-profit fan creations, and the SCP
What's
brand.
SCP, Ben?
SCP is Secure, Contain and Protect, which is the internet community that writes creepy little fictions about objects and creatures that defy the laws of physics and nature most of the time. And it's under attack in Russia again. Some guy tried to copyright it all again.
The old Russians.
And they had a kind of a creation, GoFundMe kind of thing for the legal fees over in Russia. So that's currently a court case ongoing in Russia.
Oh, really?
About attempted claiming of intellectual property that's supposed to be for everybody, Michael.
Are you saying that the guy who stole the Astartes channel was also Russian?
He was.
He was.
It's been...
That's ethnic stereotyping, Ben.
It probably is, Michael. It probably is. All Russians are hackers. You know yourself. But that's what I wanted to tell you, Michael. But it had a happy ending because they bought the channel back and gave it back to the original guy.
Well, it had a happy ending for the hacker as well then, didn't it? What happened, Ben?
He got that money.
He got that damn money. What happens so we don't negotiate with terrorists?
Doesn't apply to internet culture.
That's what bloody Hans Gruber... If Hans Gruber comes back in the now times, he'll be an internet hacker who just takes down popular websites.
Alan Rickman passed away.
No, not Alan Rickman, Hans Gruber.
You can't come back.
You can.
Alan Rickman passed
away. They'll do a reboot. They'll reboot it with a...
Nobody wants a reboot of
Alan Rickman.
Everybody
wants a reboot of Die Hard. They want a reboot of... Yeah, they want a reboot of Die Hard with Jon Snow as Alan Rickman.
Oh, God.
And who would be Bruce Willis?
There's not many people.
Chad Michael Murray.
Who is Chad Michael Murray?
From One Tree Hill. Chad Michael Murray as Bruce Willis.
I would have thought your pick for a Highlander lad would have been a good Bruce Willis stand-in.
Dustin Clare.
He's
very Australian. Very small.
Jay Courtney would probably get it. Jay Courtney will probably be the new Bruce Willis.
Well, he's already plays Bruce Willis' son in the Die Hard
series. Does he?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind then.
He was the new
Never
Die
mind.
Hard.
Oops.
Yeah. Good ear to the ground there, Ben.
Jay Courtney just always picks just slightly the wrong role. He's like, yeah, you're doing really well because you're in a big movie, but you could have chosen better.
I don't know why Jay Courtney is a Hollywood star. It doesn't
he's not.
make any sense.
I think the fact of the matter is he's not a Hollywood star. He's Hollywood star adjacent.
But why is he always in the films?
Because he makes it, because he's got a really good agent.
But
that really good agent can't lock down that last little bit that he needs.
I mean, they set him up to take over the Die Hard franchise. They set him up to take over the Terminator franchise.
He fucked them both.
I don't think he fucked them necessarily. It's just, what was he even there for?
Yeah, he's no good.
Why was he there?
Jay Courtney is a perfectly passable TV action hero.
Very good in Spartacus.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in Spartacus.
No, you should watch Spartacus. It's very good.
I'm going to have to.
Yeah,
he comes up on this podcast way too often these days.
Look, spoilers for a thing that's nearly 10 years old. He does get killed.
Oh.
So that'll probably be your favourite episode because you now hate Jay Courtney.
That. Well, I don't hate him, Michael.
Why do you hate Jay Courtney?
I'm quite apathetic towards...
I think it's Jai. I think it is Jai Courtney.
I think I might hate it because I have to call him Jai Courtney when it's clearly spelled Jay Courtney.
No, it's Jai. It's Jai. Jai Courtney, mate.
Jai Courtney.
There's a bit of stereotyping there.
Yeah, another bit of flagrant ethnic stereotype.
Put a shrimp on the barbecue.
Put a shrimp on the barbecue there, pal.
Famously, Ben, they don't call them shrimps in Australia. They call them prawns.
Did they?
Yeah.
Did they?
That phrase was invented to sell Australia by the Australian Tourism Board to Americans.
Get out of town.
And they were like, well, the bloody Americans won't know what a prawn is.
Get out of town.
Mate.
Get out of town.
So they said to get Mick Crocodile Dundee.
Get out of town.
Get Paul Mick Crocodile Dundee Hogan to go over and tell them to put a shrimp on the barbie. And then
shrimp on the barbie.
That'll up tourism.
Yeah. Yeah, they reattempted that a couple of years ago. Do you remember that for the Super Bowl?
No.
It looked like a sequel to Crocodile Dundee, but it was just a really extravagant extravagant ad.
With Margot Robbie.
Yeah, Margot Robbie.
Australia's greatest export.
Oh, Australia's greatest export. What a great thing Australia's done for the world.
Thanks, Australia.
Thanks, Australia. We really appreciate it.
Between that and the prawns.
Between that and the prawns, it's just been a win.
We've really just laid into Australia today, Ben. Speaking of, Ben.
Go on.
Oh, no, we've kind of jumped the gun. Ben, have you been keeping track of the Mandalorian, or are the airfares becoming too expensive?
I'm afraid I've run out of the funds required to keep up with the Mandalorian. I did see episode 3 this week.
No good. That's ages ago.
It's the last of my monies.
Oh, I saw episode 4, Ben.
Of course you did, Michael.
The Mandalorian has finally hit peak trope.
Oh, good.
It was like watching it from the island of Saint-Tropez.
I quite
like what I did there. That was
quite
good,
like
wasn't
that.
It was it was the episode, Ben, we all knew was coming. It was inevitable. And it was exactly what you would imagine.
It's just spot on summarising.
Yeah. What episode would you imagine, Ben, we all knew was coming?
The conflict between... Oh no, he has to seek shelter now or something, doesn't he? He has to do a runner. And he has to go back to the past, is it?
No, there's no going back to the past,
Oh, no.
Ben. It's a classic homestead defense episode.
Okay, get back on the range.
He goes back to the range and there's bandits and there's
bloody bandits.
and guess what type of characters there are?
Oh, there's some screw loose guys. There's some intense guys. There's some you shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Guy. Is there a little bit of you shouldn't be here?
Not really, a little tiny bit. There's a sexy widow.
Ooh,
who looks after him. And,
yes.
And then,
peak Western tropes.
Peak Tropez. I was like, I'm on the island of Saint-Tropez here.
Oh, excellent.
It was, it's a Western.
But Michael, more importantly, is it good?
It's quite good, yeah. It is quite good.
That's all I wanted to hear.
It's what I always thought about Star Wars, that you could just do any film but make it in a Star Wars.
Yeah, great.
And this one is the Western Homestead Defense episode.
I think Pedro Pascal has given us one of the most fleshed out Star Wars characters of all time, and he still doesn't take his fucking helmet.
Still won't take his helmet off. Gina Carano's in it. Yeah.
Well, that's got my attention.
Did you not know Gina Carano was in it?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, she plays a shock trooper.
Ooh.
An ex-shock trooper.
Ooh.
She's a grizzled veteran.
Ooh.
They do a little fight.
Ooh.
She does a bit of jiu-jitsu.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
That's peak Michael.
Has
Shane Courtney seen this?
I don't know.
She should.
He probably will.
It sounds very Shane Courtney.
We all know he's got some issues.
He's got
Gina Carano.
Several, but I'd say it's peak bloody Shane.
Peak Shane, yes.
Peak Shane.
It's very good though. Very enjoyable.
Okay.
But I mean, Ben, you know you know what you love saying. You know when you're watching a thing and then you see a trope, and then the opposite happens, and you just stand up and go, meow, 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 and then you say trope subverted.
Yeah, I'm famous for that, am I?
Yeah, that's why I won't go to the cinema with you anymore. Anytime there's a twist, you go, meow, meow, meow. Trope subverted.
And I somehow have a whole crew of urban youths in behind me going,
oh! None of the tropes are subverted.
It's so expensive for a bit.
Yeah, but none of the tropes are subverted, is what I'm saying. It just plays out exactly. It's exactly as it's. I was trapped on the island of Saint-Tropez, Ben. It was. I can't think of any other puns with trope in it.
It's fine.
Trope. I mean, the weather was tropical. That was good. Lead us into what we're doing this week.
It's funny that you should mention the Star Wars universe yet again, Michael. As some of the listeners may have noticed, Michael, we've been a little bit risque with some of our international bits today. We've had to go with some Australians. We had a little bit of an Italian gesture of and the reason we're doing that, Michael, is
because we're bad people.
Because we're bad people, and you shouldn't do that.
Yes.
But because we've been watching so many staples in fiction, Michael, and because we've been surrounded by things, and because last week, Michael, on our episode of Collecting Issues, we took a look at Mr. Chris Claremont. Yeah. And we got around to the topic, Michael, of
noted sex weirdo Chris Claremont.
We got around to the topic of bloody ethnic stereotyping in comics and pop culture, Michael.
Yes.
And we were taking a look at just sometimes, Michael, creators go a little bit off in how they decide to represent different cultures. And there's a number of reasons for it, Michael. But before we get into that, what is even the difference, Michael, between ethnic stereotyping and racial stereotyping?
I don't know, Ben.
Oh.
Oh, did you want me to answer that?
Yeah, you're
Well-
the what even is.
Well,
of this
okay, I'm
episode.
doing the what even is. Ben, well, I mean, I suppose we're talking about what's the difference between ethnicity and race.
Yes, I suppose that is what we're
That's
talking
what
about.
you're
Michael.
really, because
That's what I'm really asking.
You don't
Michael.
really need to define the difference between ethnic stereotyping and racial stereotyping, Ben.
Go on.
So, what is the difference between ethnicity and race?
Speak into your mic.
Ben,
there,
do
you're
you
causing all
believe?
kinds
Do
of
you
waveforms.
do you believe that race exists?
No, this
Aren't
is
we
gonna
all
get me
one
in
race?
so
Aren't
much
we all
fucking
one? You see what I'm saying?
Are you doing? Is this because you've been watching We Are the World on loop and Bob Geldof's ill-fated Live Aid concert, where we're
is
all
that
about
not
the
Michael
human race
Jackson?
and the children of the future?
No, it's not. But I mean, yeah, it's. Look, Ben. Let's break it down this way.
Okay.
This is a sensitive issue.
It
can be a sensitive issue.
very.
And the opinions that Ben presents on this podcast are not necessarily the opinions of Shomer Björk Limited.
Yeah, it's all my own. Any bloody horrible racist comments that I make are my fuck up.
Yeah, it'll probably be accidental. In
It
his
usually
defense.
is.
In his defense, it will probably be accidental. Ben, get us started there.
Fair enough. So what got us onto this topic was we were taking a look at a lot of different things, and Chris Claremont, I think,
Noted sex weirdo.
but old comics in general, not only engaged in a little bit of ethnic stereotyping, but really kind of basked in it on occasion, Michael. It was just awkward. And I think one of the best examples of that would probably be his X-Men, when he introduced the Uncanny X-Men. As we've said many times before, Michael, a lot of what the Uncanny X-Men run became was introducing new blood to the X-Men franchise. And originally, poor L. Scott and the gang of X-Men, who were all American and very white, got swallowed up by the island Krakoa, and Professor X, rather than call it a day and perform no more heinous acts of cruelty on adolescents, he went and got a brand new bunch. But this time, it was X-Men 2 International Boogaloo. And he went and got himself a little crew together from around the world. So we had brand new ethnic kind of people brought in. New countries, new countries brought in, new superheroes, and unfortunately
for you,
what Chris Claremont chose to do was he chose to make a lot of those countries their personalities. And the stereotypes that Chris Claremont understood to be a stereotype of those countries. So I suppose it's not fair to say that he did that with every character, but there are some notable people involved in there. One of them is standing here in front of me in your traditional 90s X-Men, the animated series lineup.
There's Jim Lee X-Men uniforms.
It's Colossus.
Ben, who were the characters that he introduced, the full six?
So we have Sunfire, who was the Japanese themed superhero.
Oh yeah, he was dressed as a Japanese flag.
We have Thunderbird, who is the Native American themed superhero.
He's got feathers.
We had Storm, who
Yeah.
is the African queen stereotype.
Probably the least stereotyped
character.
of them all.
Well, we'll get to that in a second, Michael.
All right.
Take a look at that.
Ease off, Ben.
Colossus,
Yeah,
who was the Russian stereotype.
literal Iron Curtain.
Kurt Wagner,
Yeah.
who was the super German stereotype. And then bloody Wolverine.
Yeah, he's a Canadian wild
who is the Canadian wild man. So, I mean, we've already kind of hit upon that. But these guys would have been the majority of the... Oh, sorry. And, of course, Banshee.
Was Banshee not already around? Was he introduced in that run?
Oh, maybe he wasn't.
I don't think he
Maybe
was.
he wasn't.
I don't think he was.
No.
I don't see him in my mental image of the cover of Giant Size X-Men #1.
You're right.
I don't see Sean Cassidy.
We'll have to check that. We could be slightly wrong there, ladies and gentlemen. But Banshee was in there as well. But I guess because X-Men was doing so well, Chris Claremont said, "Well, nobody cares about this, so I'm just going to do it this way."
Yeah.
And each one kind of represents their ethnicity in a unique way, usually through a catchphrase, Michael, that each character was given.
Yeah.
That really gave away where they were from.
Kurt Wagner says, "Mein Gott,
Mein Gott. Every time something goes wrong,
mein Gott."
we're all out of cereal, mein Gott.
Yeah.
We're going to have to pay a little bit extra for parking, mein Gott. Oh, there's a bunch of robots killing all our people, mein Gott.
Mein
That
Gott.
was just a phrase that went around.
It's a great action figure.
It is a fantastic action figure,
Might
Michael.
be the best.
Then we had Colossus, whose
Yeah.
catchphrase was Boy's Moi
Yeah.
or Lenin's Ghost.
Lenon's
depending
Ghost
on-
is my favourite.
Depending on how Chris was feeling that day. And he was a farming man who stepped straight out of a propaganda poster
Yeah.
for Russia.
I think he worked on the collectives.
He worked on the collectives, he did, and he had to leave his family behind to
Yeah.
become an X-Men.
Yeah.
Wolverine was the Canadian wild man, and
Yeah.
his was kind of Bub.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, 'cause
just
he's
what
from-
we came up with.
He was
I'm
always
the
calling
best
people
at what I
friend.
do. Yeah, he
Calling
was
people friend, buddy.
buddy. Yeah, and it was a lot of that. And he was really feral and just a lumberjack with claws was
Typical
basically the
Canadian,
characterization that we're going for there. And then we had Storm. And
At least he's not in the Canadian flag, unlike later Alpha Flight members.
Oh, Alpha Flight. Oh, that has its own problems. And we'll come along down. Don't worry, they're all on the list there, Michael. And then we have the wonderful Storm, who's probably the most enduring character of the lot.
What?
They're all super
Hold on,
enduring.
have you just
Wolverine
said-
and Storm would be the...
Have you just said Wolverine is less enduring than Storm?
yeah, I may have made a mistake there.
Yeah, you did.
I made
Just
a
admit
mistake
it.
there. But anyway, Storm has by the goddess is the phrase that she uses
She does
most
say that.
often in the comic books. And
But doesn't she also call herself a goddess?
yes, no, she is. When we meet Storm in Uncanny X-Men #1, she is worshipped as a goddess in Kenya.
Kenya.
She's called the Wind Rider, and she's the goddess of the wind.
But then
and-
she says by the goddess. That's like if I got into an accident and I said, "Holy me!"
well, you do
Oh,
say
yeah,
that,
do,
Michael,
yeah.
quite often.
By Mixbeard.
By Mick's beard. Mick's ghost.
I'm not dead.
No, but you will be one day, and you're preempting it.
Oh.
He dies in a Highlander-esque battle, by the way, ladies and gentlemen.
With Shane.
And they both take each other out at the exact same time.
Yeah, and that's how Jim
Which
wins.
leaves me to do a mono podcast. I have the power. While there's nothing overtly terrible in Claremont's run, like there's nothing.
I don't think Sunfire was on the bloody cover of Giant Size
No,
X-Men
he
#1.
definitely was.
Oh, you keep spinning your wheels.
Sunfire is incredibly Japanese.
Oh, he's the most Japanese man who's ever Japanesed.
And it's pretty dodgy here and there. And then Thunderbird is again just a very typical stereotype of what would have been the media version of that character at the time. There's nothing overtly horrific about these stereotypes, but in terms of representation, I would imagine if you were somebody from Russia, if you were somebody from Japan, if you were somebody from Germany,
Yeah, he's not on the cover. It's Nightcrawler,
what gives an look there?
Thunderbird, Nightcrawler, Thunderbird, Colossus, Storm, Cyclops, and Wolverine.
Oh, gas
Stuff altogether.
Gas stuff altogether. Well, Sunfire wasn't even on it. He left the team shortly after. He did not last very long on that X-Men run, because he was a very prideful Japanese man, and he left in a huff.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do the whole 30 seconds.
But one of the interesting things, Michael, is, as I said, there's nothing overtly horrific about these,
No.
but it does represent what came to be known, Michael, or what has
Yeah.
come to be known in academic circles as
Oh.
critical reresearch failure.
All right, schoolboy. No, that's
And
not.
we're just going to call it C or F.
Okay,
that's what we're going to call
college
it, just to get along with this. But it basically means
Yes.
it's the limit of the creator's research, where they've just assumed something about the country,
Right.
or they've assumed that that's the way something works, and they haven't really bothered to check.
Go on.
When we meet Nightcrawler,
Mm-hmm.
he's running through a tiny little German hamlet,
Yeah.
and the people chasing him are all in lederhosen.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Maybe it was at Oktoberfest.
and that, in the 1960s, was not entirely accurate. Storm,
Yes.
who is the daughter of Kenyan diplomats
Mm-hmm.
with mutant powers, feels most at home with her powers when she's naked.
Oh.
So there are many panels in the Chris Claremont run
Sex
where
weirdo
Storm will
Chris
do
Claremont.
a little totter out into the moors in the nip, and she'll ascend to the clouds in the nip, and her hair tactically covers everything that you
I didn't know that.
you
Ben.
need to see.
What a shame they've gotten rid of that.
Colossus
Yeah.
is riddled with guilt towards his communist leanings,
Yeah.
and frequently laments his kind of letting down of the collective.
Mm.
And again, he's a hard-working man who just believes in hard work.
Yeah,
He is the equivalent of Boxer from Animal Farm.
He is.
And again,
And he has a good square haircut.
good square hair, great design. Love Colossus, great character. But again, it could be offensive to somebody from that country. I
Almost
think
certainly was, Ben.
what was pointed out to us, Michael, and the one that we haven't talked about, is Banshee, because he wasn't in that Uncanny X-Men 1 run. But Banshee is the greatest stereotype of our country ever. I think it was the original inspiration for our series Irishman's the Spas.
I think he was. We did a whole episode about Banshee.
We did a whole episode about him.
shenanigans.
And Agent Delta Cosplay on Instagram really outlined how he felt about that character. And he said, as much echoing ourselves, Michael, there was nothing overtly offensive about that character. It didn't hurt his feelings or make him feel... But it made him cringe. And it made him go, oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Because Begorra is... Begorra is Banshee's catchphrase in the X-Men run. And he's constantly smoking a pipe.
He is.
He has a big, proud Aaron jumper on him when he's not in his spandex costume. He plays the piano for the lads when they're relaxing. Loves an old drink.
Bet he does. Slapping his wife around.
Slapping his wife around whenever he gets a chance. And he's there charming people. Sure look, I love a woman.
He'll put your tarmac down for you. Badly.
He'll put your tarmac down for you. Yeah, there's you can see a lot of different accents kind of come through there. But I think probably what marks Claremont's run out as something that is risque ethnic stereotyping.
Noted sex weirdo Chris Claremont.
Yes, noted sex weirdo Chris Claremont. Is that these phrases weren't only used in the introduction of the characters, they became the staple repeated phrases of these characters. And they were just hammered home. Boys Moy was throughout the Claremont run. Lenin's ghost made an appearance all the time. By the Goddess, Storm in the Nip. They never really progressed as characters, which is more symptomatic of comics at that time.
I think that's just comics at the time. Doesn't Black Widow also say Boys Moy?
Yeah, I think she does.
I think she says it a couple of times in the Marvel Cinematic Universe films as well.
I think she might slip it in once or twice.
She does slip it in once or twice. But, I mean, that's how... Remember, Ben, there's been a seismic... I've completely gone off topic here. There's been a seismic shift in the world of comic books and this type of entertainment. They used to be squarely aimed at children. And... characters were simple and easily defined by one or two things, like a costume and a catchphrase. Name a character from that era of anything that isn't defined by a very specific look and a very specific catchphrase. And I mean movies, television, everything.
It would be very hard to do, Michael.
Because that's how entertainment aimed at the young seemed to work back then.
Yes, and we do have to give it a pass for, look, that was the time.
Whereas now these days, you go into a comic book shop and you have to look around for the kids' comics.
Yes, Michael, because they don't exist anymore.
I know they do. There are still
definitely
kids' comics and they sell very well, but I mean, the comic book market is sweaty men our age. And sweaty.
I don't sweat.
And sweaty women our age.
I don't sweat.
This is cold in here.
Yeah, it's bloody freezing. Those nipples, Michael.
It's quite warm over here now. My back is warm.
Just little gems.
Ben is looking something up on his phone now, so I'm...
No, because Michael, you have a very fair point. The older ethnic stereotyping is completely... you can make your peace with it very easily. What you can't do, Michael, is if a world-famous writer of comic books does it in around 2010.
Oh, go on.
We Granty M.
Oh, you're always on about Granty M.
I love Granty M, because he
wrote Castlevania, didn't he?
He gets... very good. Because he didn't, you see.
It was Warren Ellis.
It was Warren Ellis. And
Warren Ellis is like Grant M if Grant M was a prick.
Yeah. I'm not going to argue that. Sorry, it was 2008, by the way. That's another quick retraction if you want to get the music out there. But Granty M took over on the Batman run in 2008, and he began to write pretty much everything around the Batman R.I.P. storyline, which was, touted as the end of Batman in the comics and stuff like that, even though it wasn't at all. Wasn't at all. But he did an excellent little mini-series, Michael.
Go on.
Called The Black Glove in a kind of prelude to this.
It's about O.J. Simpson.
A prologue. Yes, it was all about O.J. Simpson, and Batman forces the glove onto his hand to see if it fits.
Right.
It's a whole thing. But, Michael, basically, the Black Glove is all about the international Batmen who have taken inspiration from Batman and are in a little club.
Yeah, Batman Well.
The
Spanish Batman.
Exactly. And it's pretty bad. I was going over them to try and take a look, because I read this entire run and it hadn't occurred to me.
Luchador Batman.
At the time. Yeah.
Is there a Luchador Batman?
So the Batman that's been inspired in South America is called Gaucho.
Oh, yeah.
And Gaucho has a big black handlebar mustache.
Oh, yeah, of course he does.
Wears a white t-shirt and all leathers.
Oh, yeah.
And his mask is simply a bandana that has holes cut out.
So he's
in it.
Zorro.
And his weapon is a bolo,
So he's Zorro, basically.
basically. But he's also,
Yes.
and this is where it gets a little bit murky, he has a short temper.
Yeah.
His phrase is hombre,
Okay, good, yeah.
and he'll frequently challenge people to knife fights in the street,
Oh, good.
which is, Michael,
Yeah.
a big, broad stereotype that
Is it?
died with West Side Story. And Granty M just kind of introduces it no problem. And it gets worse from there, Michael.
Go on.
We don't just use, really far-flung superheroes. There's an English Batman
Oh, is it?
called the Knight.
Bat Gentleman.
And his Robin is called the Squire.
Oh, very good. Yeah, I like that.
And they sometimes stop crimes to drink a spot of tea.
Very good.
They stop crime fighting to have a sip here and there. Cheerio is his catchphrase.
Very good. Ben, this sounds to me possibly like Grant M was aware that
I think he was.
this is on purpose.
But on occasion,
Yeah.
he doesn't make any apologies for that.
No, why would he? You don't make apologies for something. If you're doing a pastiche, if you're making a pastiche, you don't say.
No, it's a really serious storyline. That's why it's not really... it would be all right if it was kind of a tongue-in-cheek jab at this kind of thing. But occasional plot points for these characters hinge on their ethnicity. The Italian Batman is Centurion.
Why is he not called Uomo Pipistrello?
Because it's a mouthful. That's quite hard to say.
That'd be better, though.
I would enjoy a Scottish man going L'uomo pipistrello,
Very good.
which is just a very complicated sequence of sentences. And the Centurion is past his prime, Michael, because he's been eating too much. He's a chubby
he's having
Italian.
mama's pasta. Mama, put on the pasta.
And back in the day, Michael,
Yes.
when he was at his peak, he drove around on a little Vespa.
Of course he did, yeah.
That's how he fought crime.
Ben, this sounds like a pastiche to me.
It was. It was absolutely a pastiche, Michael, because all these storylines are much darker. We're kind of revisiting these heroes. The whole pastiche is a Granty M classic trope where he went back through the comic books and he found... something silly, and he's brought it and he's made it grim and dark and twisted. Basically what happens is we meet all these international versions of Batman and none of them are doing as well as they should be. They're all kind of washed up and grim and dark. There's a Swedish Batman called
The Spa.
Night Owl, I think is his name.
No, that's him.
No. I think that's the whole point. It's Dark Owl or something like that.
The night darkness man.
There's a Native American one called Apache.
Oh,
or
good.
no, it's the Chief. The Chief.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's nice on the nose.
And he's an alcoholic now.
Oh, good.
And then the Italian guy is overweight. The Swedish version, the Scandinavian version is bored in his sleepy Swedish town. There's no real crime for him to fight,
and all his bat technology is flat packed. And
he's
like,
like,
just
put
give
it
me
together himself.
Just give me 20 minutes and I'll put this together and then I'll stop the crime.
That's risque. And I think maybe where this series could draw a little bit of ire is the way that these heroes have washed up.
Yes,
is an ethnic stereotype.
But I mean,
because the Native American is now an alcoholic.
Yeah.
The Italian guy is obese from eating too much food. It's a little bit risque to kind of engage in that kind of thing. It's a good series, and it's an excellent look at how, I suppose, the attitudes of the Claremont era or the attitudes of comic books back in the day were, and it's a good way of investigating those and kind of pulling them apart a little bit. But I'm not sure that the way he washes these characters up or the way he brings them to a tragic end is okay. I don't know. It's interesting for me. I forgot that wrong. Slightly indulgent and liable to shock, especially by being sexually suggestive. Yeah, alcoholic Native Americans turn me on. They not turn you on?
Very good.
Okay. But yeah, so I think in this particular case, it's good, but it treads the line between what could be offensive and what might not be. And it's a much more modern take on those characters, but I found it very interesting.
Here's my... Ben, let me give you a hot take here.
Go on.
Let me give you a hot take. Michael. I'll give you a bloody hot take, right?
That's why we're here, buddy.
I don't care about people being offended.
That's okay.
If you want to be offended, you can be offended. Get out of town, keep it to yourself.
Sure.
But stereotyping, by its definition, isn't inherently negative.
Yeah, okay.
There are lots of positive stereotypes.
For example.
Well, I mean, for example, the stereotype of the... Well, I don't have an example, Ben, because that's not where I was going. But
Oh, okay.
Stereotyping isn't inherently negative. Sometimes it's pretty neutral.
Fair.
Sometimes it's just cringingly comical.
Yes.
And it's often just used... It's storytelling shorthand in many ways. Like when we were introduced to those 6 X-Men, which are they're a good example for this, of just the shorthand was, here's the Russian guy, he's hardworking, he's loyal, he's a bit simple, he's a communist. Here's the bloody Irish fella, he's always singing a song. And he's
always got a jaunty tune in his back pocket.
Yeah. But, you know, countries that avoid being stereotyped are often the countries who do the stereotyping. So, you know, Ben, our hated enemies, the English.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, you don't see that many stereotypes of English people until you start thinking, maybe you do actually. Because if you stop looking only for negative stereotypes, you start to realise nearly every character is a stereotype.
Yeah, they have to be.
Let's go back to bloody Buffy.
Yeah. Oh.
One of the most insulting stereotypes, and insulting in a kind of ridiculous way, was Spike.
Oh, Spike.
Spike as first of all, he's American.
He's
actor.
supposed to be.
No,
The
actor,
American.
the actor,
Yeah, it's James Marsden. Yeah.
James Marsden.
No, it's not James Marsden.
Is it not Cyclops?
No.
James Masters.
James Masters, that's it.
He first of all, he's American. Hilariously, he can't really do a London accent, which is quite funny. And he is portrayed as this kind of Cockney London wide boy.
Oi, oi, oi.
Oi, all right, lads, I'm gonna fucking do a kick in the head in my coat. And awful, but a very, very, very popular character.
Very.
And I mean, hard to argue that it's a negative stereotype of Londoners. I mean, it's so far from being an actual Londoner. It's hard.
It's almost like a comical representation of what it would be to be a Londoner.
Yeah. And you know, so I mean, is it negative? It's definitely stereotyping.
Yeah,
because he's got he's like a London punk from the 80s for some reason who lives in the early 2000s. And what's going on?
What's going on?
What's going on
What's
there?
going on?
It's definitely a stereotype. It's definitely not a complex character, but they make him complex then after they use that shorthand to introduce him. Oh, he's got a leather coat, he's got dyed blonde hair, he's got a London accent.
I suppose Constantine would be a good parallel.
He's smoking
for
a
that.
fag.
Yeah. Holy shit, wait, hang on. Spike and Constantine are the same character.
No, Constantine's not a punk.
He is. Constantine's whole backstory is that he came from punk. He learned death magic and black magic from
punks.
From punks.
Oh, I didn't know that.
To impress women.
Oh.
Yeah, that's John Constantine's whole...
And Spike was a London poet who had his heart broken by a lady and then turned to...
I didn't quite have that with
vampirism and punk. But we had a very good suggestion on the Instagram.
Go on.
Did you see it?
Yes, we did, which brings me into my next point. So please, Michael.
No, go on. You roll away.
So, friend of the podcast, Dr. Cadwell.
Yes.
Who you can find on the gram. Mm-hmm. Gave us a little shout out from Deep Space Nine.
A very good one, Ben.
A very, very good one. And this, I suppose, brings us into the realm of acceptable ethnic stereotyping.
Is it acceptable?
Well, not acceptable in a moral sense, but certainly doesn't seem to be as targeted in certain aspects. It doesn't seem to be the draw of much ire.
Well, Ben, I'm going to interrupt you again. Sorry.
Go on.
Possibly not drawing much ire because it's outside of our sphere.
It is very much outside
of our sphere. It might be people from Louisiana were like, oh, for God's sake.
So just to fill this in nice and quickly, it's Sisko's family from Deep Space Nine.
Captain Benjamin Sisko.
I'll just give it an L read there. Why can't an African-American granddad be an architect or a PR agent? Why does he have to be a gumbo chef whose only concern is Creole cooking and jazz?
A very good point.
Great point. I think that probably highlights some of the dangers of casual ethnic stereotyping. Is it can pigeonhole a character or it can limit a character for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, he was like, Benjamin, why do you have to be a Starfleet captain? Why don't you just make a gumbo?
Yeah, I taught you the saxophone 10 years ago and now you never play.
Why are you flying around in that spaceship when you could be making a jambalaya.
It's like
I might make a jambalaya this afternoon.
oh, jambalaya could be fun, but yeah, pretty much exactly. And that brings us to a lot of African American culture suffers from this kind of stereotyping. I mean, we have many examples. I think one of the big ones that comes up is the magic old man is a big trope in the magic black man. Seems to be a big trope in a lot of things. Green Mile, big southern magic black man. The old Morgan Freeman's character in anything.
God.
In anything. And then one of the big ones for female African American representation is kind of the sassy black woman, the sassy best friend. That kind of whole thing. And that whole culture has been built upon in multiple iterations. One of the ones that jumped out to me the most over the last couple of years, in a now completely defunct series that really didn't make any impact, but True Blood, Michael, you'll recall, was the sexy vampire
True
kind
Blood
of
really
craze.
didn't have a lasting legacy,
No,
did it?
didn't stick
It
the
didn't
landing.
even what's his name hasn't stuck around in either of them to the degree that we thought they would. Either Stephen Moyer or Bill Skarsgård's older, handsomer brother,
Alexander
Skarsgård.
Yeah, very handsome.
Very handsome, very tall.
You could
very
argue that
wiry,
Bill
though.
surpassed him now.
Yeah, very wiry. Wouldn't be a good He-Man.
Terrible He-Man.
Yeah.
But that whole stereotype has had a lot of heat lately. One of the more recent examples would be Tara from that. She was constantly to the point of being a contrarian in every episode, simply because she wanted to be a strong, independent woman who didn't need no white man, very specifically.
Did she say white man?
No, she didn't. But that was kind of the beats of her character in almost every single episode. And her cousin, I think it was Lafayette, was a black gay man in Louisiana, who was also a sassy, independent black gay man who don't need no white man.
And also a Creole cook.
And that's very interesting to me.
Is that not, though, in a lot of ways subverted? Because at least he's got lots going on. He's a gumbo chef, but he's not the gumbo chef you'd expect.
He's not just a gumbo chef.
Yeah, he's a gay man, but he's not just a gay man. He's a sassy black man, but he's not just a sassy black man. In a lot of ways, he had a bit more going on, I would say.
It's a good attempt, but I suppose, and there's no harm in that. It's good when that stereotype is subverted and challenged and kind of given new flesh. And that happened in the much maligned new Ghostbusters reboot. Both sides of this coin were kind of represented in Leslie Jones. So for anyone who doesn't know who Leslie Jones is, she has left SNL now, but she was on SNL for about 5 seasons. And Leslie Jones was the only black female cast member for a very long time. And she came under a lot of fire, and I suppose the writers of SNL came under a lot of fire because every time she was on screen, she was a loud, obnoxious black woman. That was her character in most sketches. And I think some people found that hilarious, and other people were like, this is not all that black women are. And she came under, she didn't come under any fire. The company that made the new Ghostbusters film came under fire because in the ad, in the advertisements, in the trailers, Michael, it seemed to be 3 white women and comic relief. It seemed to be the way she was going to be represented in the thing. She wasn't a doctor or a professor or something like that in the trailers. She was the Ernie Hudson character.
Well, Ernie Hudson, that's like that.
It's
Ernie
a great
Hudson
example.
Was just the working schlub.
Exactly, which is a great example of that. And people were quite offended that they were going to continue the stereotype, but it was actually just how they packaged the trailer. In the actual movie, she's a historian and a doctor in her own right.
The real stereotyping of that movie was the typecasting of Chris Hemsworth as just a dumb, handsome guy.
Big piece of meat.
Yeah.
Big piece of meat.
That insults my people.
What, as a piece of meat yourself?
Yeah, just
as sexy piece, as I can do.
Dumb, handsome guys.
Yeah. To be fair, Mick is a dumb, handsome guy.
Thanks,
but he's a dumb, handsome guy with a degree.
I've got several degrees, actually.
Several degrees. More letters after his name than the alphabet. Michael, more letters after his name. Leonard. But yeah, so I mean, it's an interesting thing that people are still trying to cash in. The reason that she was packaged in that way was to...
Now, hold on a minute. Are you speculating here, or is this a fact?
No, there's been a lot of criticism about this.
No, that doesn't answer my question.
No.
Are you speculating or is it a fact?
Okay, it's not a fact.
Okay, speculation. All right, go on.
It's not my speculation. It is speculation in general.
All I'm saying is, you asked me to make sure you don't get yourself in trouble.
It's good. Thank you. But a lot of that speculation has been around the fact that they were trying to appeal to a very specific demographic of black people in the United States. The kind of people who watch.
Go on. People who go to a Sinbad movie.
Exactly.
People who go to a, what's the other guy?
Medea. What's his name? Oh God, Tyler Perry.
Yeah.
And again, the criticism for that is it limits black people's perceptions of themselves in cinema. Tyler Perry has come under a lot of criticism for that kind of behavior before. I don't know if it's Uncle Tomming, but it's playing the expected stereotype.
I mean, that has affected me in a sense, because
if you bring up Chris Hemsworth in Ghostbusters again.
Chris Hemsworth in Ghostbusters, I can only wear glasses with no lenses in them. No, since the Banshee of the X-Men in the 90s, I can never envisage myself as a superhero unless I'm literally wearing green and doing something Ireland themed.
It's like, I long for the green field, Sinister. Tosser.
My abilities are shooting green grass at people, like the green grass of home.
I just spray Guinness from my fingertips.
Guinness man, yes. I'll do. I'll. What else are we famous for?
Don't bring a wife near me, because
I'll give her a schmack.
She'll be getting a swift backhand from me.
I'm the wife schmacker. That's me. This is a weird one, Ben. But have you ever? I'm so predictable. Have you ever read Stormwatch?
Yes, I have, Michael. On your recommendation.
I think Warren Ellis did a much better job of an international team there.
Yeah,
because there's a hint of the X-Men about them. There's a Japanese guy, there's an Irish guy, there's an African lady, there's an American,
Englishman,
but they're not defined by their nationalities.
Not at all, not even a little bit. So that's probably a good place to pick up if you want to go. Michael, we seem to have run over time.
We do a bit.
But yeah, that's a great shout. So if you want to see some interesting ways, 2 different ways of handling a team, read some of the Gles Claremont X-Men, and then give Stormwatch by Warren Ellis and Al Reed. And you can see that just because a character comes from a certain country doesn't mean that their entire personality has to be defined through that lens. Ladies and gentlemen, which ones did we miss? Which ones do you think are kind of a little bit offensive or a little bit on the nose or really limit a character and what they can do? If you want to hear more about Irish ethno stereotyping, take a look at our Irishman Suspense series. There are 4 episodes. They're on a unique playlist there on the YouTube channel. If you want to give them a listen, you'll have to scour through the old archives on Spotify. Speaking of Spotify, Michael,
go on.
We are, of course, on Spotify. If you're listening to us here now...
If you're listening to us on Spotify, you knew that.
Give us an follow, though, just in case you haven't been following us. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, ladies and gentlemen, a review. To engage in a little bit of ethno-stereotyping. Sure, I'd be the best friend you'd ever have there if you took the time to just scribble down a quick old review. I'll get you a pint.
All right. Ben will get you, specifically Ben will get you a pint, not me.
May the review page rise to meet you.
Yeah.
If you're listening to us on YouTube, one of the small demographic that still listens to us on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe. It's good for the channel. And throw us a comment down below. If you'd like to get in touch with us to suggest an episode or something we should review, we are on seomrabeag.com, seomrabeag.com.
It means tiny room in Irish.
It means tiny room in Irish. We are on Instagram at seomrabeag.com, exact same spelling as before.
Because it's the same phrase.
You can leave us a comment. Maybe you're a social media hound.
Social media,
and you enjoy getting in touch with us there. Or you can simply find our email somewhere online and email us directly.
Michaelandbenjaminspodcast at gmail.com.
As always, ladies and gentlemen, this has been us. Begala and goodbye.
Ben, before we go, tell them about the bloody Mickeys.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Soon, ladies and gentlemen, the end of the year is upon us. And that'll mean that we'll be doing our coveted award ceremony, the annual Mickeys, where Mick lashes out the Mickeys for everything he's liked over the year.
And some of the things we haven't liked.
We have noted characters such as Bad Egg of the Year. Who do you think was an absolute tosspot?
Not that much this year.
There's a lot of... I think it's just subtler. I think they've adapted.
Right.
I think there's still a pack of pricks around. Yeah. Bad Egg of the Year, Good Egg of the Year. Some of the 2 things that you really enjoyed. We always look for a best series, a breakout hit, an unexpected hit, best movie, the usual categories you think. Anything that you deserve is a good Mickey.
Yeah. That's risque. You see, you've got it now.
See, I got it now. Anyway, that's it from us, ladies and gentlemen. Do get in touch with us and give us your pitches for the rest of the year. That's it. Bye.
Top of the morning. Stop, you
It
son of a
lost
bitch.
the ability to stop.